For those of you who have been following this series, you may recall when we made this thing here going on 6 weeks ago now. And I have found that I'm going to have to change my plans a little bit, and I'm going to have to replace this shaft. You may remember we made it out of a big spike, and anyway, I'm going to have to replace it with another shaft that is about 4 inches longer. And the idea is I want to have this piece here swinging outside of the plates that we were talking about, or the bridge work. I don't know what you want to call it. And so I'm going to have to take this apart, and let me stop making a racket here. Okay, so I'm going to cut it from this piece right here, and I'll be making this end of it the same as these. However, this end of it, the last 4 inches, I'm going to turn down to accommodate this bearing. It is a little bigger than 1/4 of an inch in inside diameter and a little bit smaller than 3/8. This is 3/8 inch rod. And I'll just turn this down so this will slide up about 4 inches. And yeah, that's sort of the next step right now. Now I know this means I'm going to have to drill and tap this rod here to accommodate this little brace here. I might as well just leave that in there. Might be kind of hard to see, but there's a little mark that I made right here. So I want to turn this down to this mark so that that other bearing that we looked at will slip on. And before I do that, I've got to sort of countersink the end here with my centering bit and put the live center in. Because if I don't, what can happen is, when I was practicing with this machine when I first got it, I was turning down nails and stuff like that because they were cheap, and I found that if I was to try and turn down a nail away out at the end here, it would actually climb right on top of the cutter and twist itself off, or crooked. I think I only did that once. And then I learned that if you want to turn something, you try and get it in as close to the chuck as you can. Which in itself is kind of dangerous because there's a chance of accidentally hitting this, because this machine does automatically feed in like this, and if you're not watching what you're doing, and I've not had a disaster yet, but I could have. Anyway, I'm rambling here. So yeah, so I've got to countersink the end here so that I can get my live center up against it, because I'm going to be going in about 4 inches here. It only has to be taken down just a little bit. Maybe, I'm guessing not even 1/16 of an inch. Now I realize that it is very difficult to see, but there's the tip of the cutter, right there. And here's the face of the end of the rod. What I want to do is I want to square that off, so that when the centering bit tries to find the center, it doesn't come up against a wobbling surface and starts to enter in the wrong place. May as well get it as true as we can here. In all likelihood it would find center more or less, but this sort of helps to guarantee it. Now I know I didn't show it, but I moved up to a larger centering bit here. This one here. The other one was just a little bit on the flimsy side, you might say. Okay, now we got to move everything out so I can get to this line here. And I think that should be enough. Oh, by the way, kind of interesting, yesterday my doorbell rings. The guy at the door was a friend of mine who's actually a master machinist. He's retired now, but he's had extensive training both in Europe and in North America. And he was down here probably trying not to laugh. No, not really, but anyway, he was suggesting that when I take this down, that I have my cutter with just a little bit more of a, I think he said a rake or something. So I'm going to change to another cutter here so that instead of this surface here being perpendicular to the work here, it'll be at a bit of an angle like this. Now I realized that I could take this thing here and I could, move it around, go all the way around and have it stop at an angle, but then this surface here might have more of a tendency to catch. So I do have another cutter and I'm just going to put it in right now. I was telling him that I was just using number 30 motor oil here, and he was saying, well, if that's what you're going to use, you may as well not use anything. And I knew I should be using proper cutting oil, but I'll eventually get some. And a couple of things he told me that I already knew, like for instance the live center, only bring it up tight enough until it actually starts to turn, and then that's it. He was saying that because the RPM is so low on this, and the surface speed, because this is so small, the surface speed is so slow that I don't need oil anyway, he said. So, no, I know I did get some on there, but that's all right. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. All right, so we'll get this thing going, and we'll bring our tailstock up until this starts to turn, and then yeah, we'll see what happens here. Well, we were just barely tickling it there. Maybe took off 10/1000ths of an inch. Just got the dirt off, actually. Could have gone a little deeper, but that was the first pass. Well, I'm going to get the camera out of the way now and go down the rest of the way, and we'll take a look after I get it down to, I think it has to be about 270 thousandths. Well, it's going to have to do, because I can't put any back. Now, yesterday when my master machinist friend was over here, and we were trying to figure out what kind of steel this was, and I was mentioning to him that I thought it was a little bit hard to machine down, he was saying something about it might be cold rolled steel, but he wasn't sure. And the reason he wasn't sure is because he thought he saw a little seam along it lengthwise, and that shouldn't be for cold rolled steel. He was mentioning how he personally found drill rod extremely hard to turn on a lathe. And needless to say, I won't be trying that anyway. However, it's going to be alright. It's going to be alright.